Welcome back to Politics Tonight. Now let's speak with our guest of the day, who is a journalist, writer, and policy analyst, Akinsiju, for discussion on BBC reports that President Tinubu's Chicago certificate is not forged. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much. It's a privilege too.
Right. So as a policy analyst, what do you make of this controversy trailing the academic record of the president?
Well, I think it's normal political maneuvers. What properly put, it's a machination of opposition elements against an incumbent. It's not new, although it's immoral, but it's not new within political environment. Again, when you see the characters behind this concocted confusion, as it were, one would feel rather disappointed because we're talking about a one-time vice president of the Nigerian nation, the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And we have also seen an escalation of his own intendment by a former governor of Anambra, of a state in this country, who also ran for president in 2023, the presidential election in 2023. So when you look at these characters, it's rather bemoaning, because one would have thought that these individuals are of substance of mind and, of course, of character and strength, strength of intellect, strength of thought processes and all that. Because for me, in truth, what is at issue? Is it the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did not go or did not attend or did not graduate from the Chicago State University? Or that, yes, he attended the Chicago State University, and he was actually awarded a diploma to that effect. He graduated from Chicago State University, but that while he was submitting his INEC particulars, he forged a certificate, to submit as representation of being a graduate, or rather being a graduate of Chicago State University. So you see this confusion. What exactly are we trying to establish? What exactly is the opposition? What exactly is Alhaji Atiku Abubakar trying to establish? Is it the fact of the president not attending the Chicago State University, or the fact that he attended, but the certificate he was issued with was forged, or that yes, he attended, he graduated, but that the certificate he is claiming to have collected is forged? So there's a lot of confusion here. And I want to imagine what he is going to argue, even if, perchance, the Supreme Court asked him, to present his evidence. So it's confusing for me. I really don't know what issues are being pleaded in the real sense of it. Is it the university, the Chicago State University, declared that this individual, identified by a name, the name for which all Nigerians know him for, actually attended their university from this particular period to this particular period, and they did not just attested to his attending that university, they actually released a transcript of his studentship in that university. Now, for me, if the individuals pursuing this line of action, and I'm sorry to use the word, if they are not illiterate, if they had gone to a university or a polytechnic, a higher institution, they would understand that a certificate, a diploma, as they call it in the US, we call it a certificate because it is the evidence, a paper evidence of our times in the university. But the truth of the matter is, it is just a paper reference. The true evidence of going or attending a particular school and graduating in that school is the transcript. And that is why if you are applying for a postgraduate course, for instance, anywhere in the world, and even in Nigeria, you would forward your certificate but you would apply to your school, your university, or the polytechnic you have attended, as the case may be, to forward your transcript to the institution of your interest. And it is based on your transcript that that institution will attend or address to your application, as it were. So the Chicago State University had not just issued or rather released diploma evidence, as it were, but they have released the transcript of the president. So the matter then is, what is more important? Is it to establish the fact of the attendance of the Chicago State University by the president using the evidence of the transcript, which actually is a collation of all courses he undertook from year 1 to the last year in the university, and grades too, you know, then and it shows clearly the name, you know, of the president, as it were. So I am confused.
To say about this unrelenting desire of the presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar, to bring down President Tinubu?
It's unrelenting, yes, it's unrelenting, but it also borders on I think there is an issue concerning the way former Vice President Atiku conducts his legal and election-related legal issues, you know. Because when you look at a connection, or rather when you look at the connection between what happened in 2019 and what is happening in 2023, I am suspecting that he's in a community of fraudsters. His political associates and friends, you know, are milking him deliberately by a persuasion beyond logic, you know. In 2019, the major concern of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar was a back end, an INEC election results back end, you know, and that was the whole thing about this argument, that there was a back end results whatever by the INEC and all that, and INEC came out that they don't have any back end collation platform. When and they kept that up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, if the institution you are alleging had this thing, and they are saying they don't have it, then what is your own creation? It's as if you are creating this thing in your own mind, you know. Then roll forward, 2023, 4 years thereafter, it's the same creation of some imaginative certificate, because at issue now should be if indeed the president attended the university or he did not. That is what it should be at issue. It is not about a particular certificate being forged, when indeed and in fact the school the president attended had in no small way attested to the fact that indeed the president graduated from the school. So the whole thing for me, one, would smack of being comical, because the logic being advanced in the public space are deficient, very deficient logic. After the BBC issued its the report of its investigation, and I was quite impressed with the process. Some spokesperson of the president had come out, and even some sponsored group had come out to say, to impugn that report. And they impugn it in the most primitive manner. There's no logic to it, no intellectual application at all. You know, you were referencing one certificate that was issued in 1979, and you expect the same character, the same feature of certificates issued in 1979.
So before we get to that, I mean, you've given us a well-detailed background. Can you hear me? Well, yeah, you've given us a well-detailed background to this matter. So I'd like us to take these issues that have been raised. I'd like us to take the issues one after the other. Now, despite certification of the academic record of President Tinubu by the Chicago State University, Atiku proceeded to the Supreme Court with this record. Why do you think there is this desperation?
Well, it's one, all the matters conversed at the Presidential Electoral Tribunal had been dismissed. And I am not a lawyer, but you don't need to be a lawyer to look at the positions canvassed at that level. So my expectation was that most of those allegations, would be dismissed, And as it were, it's as if this is an afterthought. Somebody must have sold this idea, to the former vice president to toe this line, believing that there may be a diversion, and believing that they may even blackmail the Supreme Court, into accepting further evidence, as it were, when indeed most of our lawyers, including those in opposition, are told Nigerians that a charge that is not pleaded at the primary level, would not be accepted at the Supreme Court, as it were. And that's the highest appellate level you can imagine. So now, if we are going to the appeal court, as it were, and through to the Supreme Court, to my mind, all the aggregation of whatever Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is putting together will not stand the litmus test. It's clear, it's apparent. Because I even want to concede, for the purpose of argument, that all this voyage of discovery, as it were, that they call it, when they are brought before the justices of the Supreme Court, how would they relate with this confusion, as it were? What would they be pleading? Would the plea be about the president being a graduate of of this university? Or would it be about, yes, he attended this university, he graduated, but in submitting his credentials to INEC, he submitted a forged document?
So a BBC reporter has affirmed that there is no evidence of forgery by President Tinubu in his certificate. How will you react to that?
I accept. I have read the report of the BBC, and as a trained investigative journalist, I'd also reviewed the process, for which through which they arrived at that conclusion. And to my mind, that's a process that allows for proper auditing, because one, they understood all the requests by Alhaji Atiku Abubakar to the courts in the US. And they also understood all the documents the court required the CSU, the Chicago State University, to release. And they itemized, by 4 points, the list of all these documents that were released to Atiku lawyers, the Alhaji Atiku lawyers. And they now, of course, did a comparative analysis by year, by year and period of all these documents. Now, that's how you do things. You do not stay, you are in 2023, and you want to compare a document released in 2022, for instance, to a document released in 1993 or 1992 or even 1999, for instance, and you expect that all the features of the two documents will be the same. The person that signed the document in 1979, when it was first issued, would definitely not be in that institution so many years after. 1979 to 2022, when the certificates they are I mean, the diploma that is in contention now was issued. In fact, it was from the BBC report that I read that 2 times the CSU, Chicago State University, reissued the diploma. And that the last diploma that was reissued was not even collected by the president. And that the school declared that they are still they are still holding to that. It's still in their archive, as it were. So it is not as if there was a desperation to produce diploma certificate by, an evidence of the diploma by all means possible, you know. So it's apparent that the BBC did a mark by mark investigation of the document, and whoever wants to contend with it must come with some logic, must understand the issues about evolving period. Technology had evolved between 1979 and 2022. The way we do things, even procedurally and administratively in the academic world, had evolved between 1979 and 2022. So, to my mind, the BBC report is a well-investigated report, and it is an appropriately contextualized report. It will just be sheer Zenoism if anybody came out to now start traducing the basis of that report.
So interestingly and unexpectedly for some people, Atiku and Obi have also condemned that report by BBC. Were you expecting this as well?
No, of course I expect the Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's side people to traduce the report because it is actually shaming whatever they embarked on. And I'm very sure they had paid so much money. The former president would have paid a lot of money to secure the service of lawyers and investigators and all that in the US. And of course, for Nigerians, unfortunately, the outcome became an anticlimax to the extent that the issue is what exactly are the discovery, you know, after this voyage of disrepute, as it were. So for them, there is a need to continue to beat that drum of disrepute in the public space with the hope of, or rather, with intention of tarnishing the image, the person of the president, unfortunately. But they forget that Nigerians are rational-minded people. If you announced that you were embarking on a voyage of discovery, and that at the end of the day, there will be a discovery in the real sense of it. Now, the outcome of that discovery or that process had actually come into the public space rather than the banger that was being expected. Now we now have a whimper. So when you now have a whimper, the question is, what exactly is the outcome of that discovery? Is it discovery in the real sense of it? The forgery allegation is a made up, how do I call it? Is an approach, is an effort to create or to create a new excitement, you know, for supporters of the PDP, as it were. So it's just to excite their supporters and to feel that something new is coming, or that an extension of that discovery is this forgery thing. That discovery should have told us that President Tinubu did not attend that university. That is the discovery. That is what everybody was expecting. But now, the outcome of that investigation, the outcome of that legal process had told us indeed, and in so many assertive ways, that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu truly attended the Chicago State University. That cannot be contended with again.
All right. So because this report is not by a Nigerian media organization, some people have said this condemnation by Atiku and Obi depicts witch hunts by desperate sore losers. And some others have said this is politics. But is this the kind of politics we should be practicing in this time and age?
Definitely not. And of course, nobody would impugn the BBC brand. Anybody that had gone through journalism training would of course tell you that a reference in journalism training, and I know I'm talking about 50 years now, the reference in journalism training is the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. So it's you do not traduce, neither do you impugn, neither do you desecrate the BBC brand. The BBC brand is one of the holy grails in communication. And when the BBC, and back in those days, I recall, in the 70s and in the early 80s, the BBC used to be the major source of breaking news around the world. And for anybody in Nigeria, if any news was coming from the BBC, it was the gospel truths. So we now have, so many years down the line, the BBC conducting this kind of interview, this kind of investigation, and coming out with a report, and a gang of some not exactly too serious people will come out and condemn that report. I think I am trying to be cautious of the language I want to use to describe this kind of people. There are certain things you don't do because of politics. There are certain things you don't do because you want to run somebody down. And we tell people that politics is not bad in itself. Because some people will tell you, it's a slogan, politics is a dirty game. And we tell people, no, politics is not a dirty game. It is those people that play it in dirty ways. Politics has a number of philosophical undercurrents. First, you must be transparent. And in being transparent, you must be honest. In being honest, you must be truthful. Those are the pillars of politics. And if you fall below those standards, you must be seen to be one who is irresponsible. And I'm sorry, that is what we are seeing in that on that side of our political divide at the moment.
So some people are also alleging inducement for BBC to do such reports. What's your reaction to that allegation?
Who will induce BBC? BBC has a record of even gifting, if you are interviewed by BBC, they will gift the interviewer honorarium. So what manner of inducement would you give BBC? And we know we have so many a number of media houses like that in Nigeria too, that are honorable, that are professional. I am not just a graduate of mass communication. I hold a master's in mass communication. I've been practicing mass communication for more than 30 years, and I know institutional brands in the communication firmament. I know the kind of brand that would issue a position, and that position will be nothing less than the standard of that industry. So it is unimaginable that anybody would accuse the BBC either as an individual, as an individual reporter, or as an institution of being induced. To what end? You are talking about a brand that has been forever there, and is being built, with certain level of finesse, certain level of precaution, and all that. And you want to, no, it is not proper. Nobody can traduce, nobody can reduce the brand BBC. As a journalist, I am proud to say that BBC is one of the reference institutions, in the communication world.
Absolutely. So President Tinubu has told the Supreme Court to dismiss Atiku's petitions because it's cooked up allegations against him. How tenable is this?
I mean, the tenability of the president's submission is actually an extension of what the Presidential Election Tribunal, had said. All the positions of the opposition, either they are at the level of the PDP or the Labour Party, everything, there were no basis for them. And what is even more interesting is this is an election. And at issue is the contention for the appropriate winner of that election. When you go to court or to an election tribunal, as it were, the first most important issue of significance is to lay before the judges your case in terms of numbers, because election is about figures and numbers, that the winner, or the alleged winner, or the supposed winner secure this number of votes, and that you are contending with those numbers of votes because you believe that you have these higher numbers. You have a higher number to be able to prove that you were actually the winner of the election. In all this, we have not seen, in fact, the judges asked, what are the numbers, these two, sorry, please, I am still trying to be cautious in the kind of language I want to use. The two opposition figures, let's use it that way. The two opposition figures, what numbers have they brought forward to prove? In all their positions, they have not brought forward a particular number of votes that they think they had, and that they believe if counted and compared with what numbers of votes was used to declare the president as the winner of the election, they will be the persons that will win. And now, of course, we also have an individual who is a distant third, who was a distant third, in that election, also claiming to be the winner. And that, again, the judges asked, where are the numbers? If you have the numbers, prove the numbers. And what we are hearing from the other side, or from their side, is that they brought a lot of papers, documents, and they dumped those papers in the court. And I laughed. I am not a lawyer, but my following of legal issues around post-election matter is that you have to plead every document, every single document that you have brought. You have to plead it. It's not that you just dump it on them and direct their attention to the fact that there are documents you have brought to the court. Have you pleaded it? Have you pleaded any of those documents? None. So this whole thing, for me, it's an awada thing. It's comedy. It's just to feel the environment. And unfortunately, the way they are feeding the environment, they are polluting the environment with divisive sentiments. You are in a way excoriating the character, the personality of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is not fair. It is not fair to the President himself, who had built his own image over the years. It is not fair for the average Nigerians. The average Nigerian who believes that the person that represents him as president is actually a model person. So you don't mess up the environment because you have a vendetta, as it were, to pursue.
Right. So let me go by the president's exact words. The president described Atiku's petition as mere blockbuster, with thrilling suspense, hide and seek. Do you share that sentiment?
I share. I am not surprised. Just like I said, the PDP position, and when I say PDP position, I use it in contaminously, with Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's, if you look at the way the passion, as it were, expressed and used in pushing the so-called back-end platform in 2019, you will not be surprised that this kind of funny maneuvers are being reenacted in the public space again. And for me, it's actually embarrassing. There are certain standards you don't go below when you have attained a certain office in the hierarchy of things in a nation like Nigeria. A nation of more than 200 million people, highly educated people, highly exposed people, and you just come and you play to the gallery. You try to excoriate certain individuals, and you just try to confuse matters because you need an agenda to be in the presence of the people at all time. No, it's not fair. So if the president is summarizing the whole legal matter that the Atiku team has brought as being drama, it's nothing than drama. It's you play up certain sentiments and you are asked to present evidence to support your sentiments. You cannot present them. You cannot provide them. That translates to mean that you are playing a hide and seek game, because you make allegations, you create charges. You cannot support your charges and allegations with facts and figures. So how else do you describe that? And in some cases, you create scenarios that are not believable, and sometimes that are even beyond imagination, that are fictional. How else do you want to describe that? As just being dramatic, So if you sit down again and look at the beginning of the process of the legal issues, the post-election matter, all the claims are nothing. What I wanted to see was specific figures in polling units, in wards, in local governments, how those figures were manipulated, what happened to those figures that were supposed to come to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, what was supposed to go to Mr. Peter Obi, and why the figures that was counted for the president, why were they higher, than their own? Those are the things I want to hear. Yes, the other side, they are the peripheral matter, but they have become the major substantial matters in the environment, as it were. And it is causing distraction to Nigerians. And I believe that it's high time we forget all this and let the president concentrate on what he's doing, on the business of administering Nigeria, and of course, the most important thing, on the business of prospering Nigeria.
Ms. Akinsiju, let's take a break. I've been speaking with a journalist, writer, and policy analyst tonight to discussing BBC reports saying that President Tinubu's Chicago certificate is not forged. We'll take a break now, and I will be right back.